What is going on? Welcome to episode 26 of the Nintendo Powercast. I'm your host, N64 Josh. I've got Destinaut with me. How's it going, dude?
26 was a good year. Wait. No, it was a terrible year. I got put on guard duty for a month on my birthday. It's pretty sweet. And by
sweet,
like
your
I mean
age 26?
Sweet, yeah.
I thought you meant like 1926.
Not like
I'm like,
the
bro,
year
you weren't
26, like when Jesus was 26.
How do you get guard duty for a month?
You're in Iraq.
Oh, okay.
Living a good life. Drinking that sweet orange soda, eating falafel.
I hate my life. What's going on, dude?
What is up? How's it going?
It's going good, man. It's going good. It's going very good, actually. Very, very good. Just want to let you guys know, this podcast is a product of thelootcave.com. There you'll find all kinds of gaming articles, different podcasts, and all kinds of just gaming content. So go check out thelootcave.com. We do this show live on twitch.tv/thelootcave, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on every Tuesday. And I think there's kids outside my house having fun. I've tried to talk them out of having fun, and they still just do it.
Nintendo podcast, Josh.
I know. So if you hear happy children in the background, it's either that or I close my window and my office becomes the third level of hell. So I'd rather not melt into a pile of goo right now. But hey, this was an exciting week for me. It's a very exciting week. I told my wife Friday night, I said, hey, we haven't gone retro game hunting in a couple years, like actual like hunting, like yard sales and stuff. And so I said, hey, do you want, and she loves yard sales. Like she loves, I hate them personally. I can't stand them. And I tell her every time she goes, hey, ask them if they have Nintendo games. And she usually comes back empty handed. She came back with some Game Boy games the last time she went, but usually empty handed. Well, we went together, and the first one, I got Adventure Island 2. So now I have all three on the NES. I was only missing 2.
Do you only collect sequels?
Dude, I don't know. This was a good. It was a good day for sequels that day. I got Beautiful Joe 2 also, which I've never played either of those in that series on GameCube. So, but a lot of these games were like in the dollar bin. Adventure Island was a little bit more, and they had a GoldenEye there, and they had some DS games, but I really was only just going for the stuff that I really wanted, not stuff that I was going to end up with duplicates of. So, got a handful of Wii games, a handful of Wii U games, and I got like a Namco museum on the Xbox, and this was the best. I went to this one and I almost didn't get out of the car, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to ask him. I could see him walking by. I'm like, hey, you got Nintendo games? And he turns and looks at me and goes, I have boxes of Nintendo games. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, give me your phone number. When I start finding stuff, I'll let you know. So he called me the next day, and he said, hey, I got Sega stuff and some GameCube stuff and PlayStation stuff. I'm like, well, I'm going to go check it out. Cause he said boxes of games. So I'm going to go check it out. Well, what he had was a Sega CD with a Sega Genesis 2 on it with the 32X inside of that.
Yes.
And the 32X box, the cardboard box, and all the major cables, all the proprietary cables that are probably impossible to get.
Yeah.
The only thing it's missing is the power plugs, basically.
Those shouldn't be too hard.
I called my local retro game store. I'm like, hey, what's the trade-in value on this stuff? And then is it hard to get the AC adapters? And he's like, no, you're good. Those are the easy things to get. He's like, as long as you have that cord. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got all the cords. I could actually stream Sega games now because this had an AV cord with it. And it's a very interesting cord. It almost looks like an S video, the way it plugs into the back of the system,
Yeah.
but there's only 2 little metal prongs coming out of it, one for audio, one for video. And I was like, this is bizarre. I thought it was broke when I looked inside it, but so I'd never seen this Voltron before. So now here it is. I have no way to check if it works or not.
No
I'm
games?
not sure. No games.
Hmm.
So the other thing he had was a GameCube, and it was the original GameCube, like the first run that you could plug the component cables into. So I'm immediately looking through for the component cables because I think I've told you guys I lost a set of those component cables. I either gave them away or I threw them away.
Aren't those things like $90?
Try $400.
They're a myth.
Yeah, $400.
I'll make you one for $400.
It takes you have to have a chip for it. That's why they're so expensive.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, I see that and open it up. It has Mario Party 4 in it, and it still had the power adapter and a set of AV cables. No controllers for anything.
Did you check the hidden compartment on the underside to see if there's like $6,000 in there?
That's not a bad idea, but no, I haven't. So,
I had a lot of there.
but anyway, I talked with this guy for a while, and he goes, so you like, and he's a little hard to talk to, kind of like real squirrely dude. And so he's like, so you like the games? I'm like, yeah, the games. He's like, oh, okay. I have 2 boxes of the old ones where like you stick them in and push them down. That's the ones you're looking for. He goes, if I can get to them before my wife does, I'll give you a great deal on them. So I'm just like, oh my goodness. So I'm waiting for the call. I may go bug him again in a couple days just to see.
Rough guesstimate. How old is this guy who asks if you like the games?
You like the games?
Yeah. He looks a little more well written than he probably is. So he's probably like early to mid 50s, but he looks a little more like 60s. But he has like a 3 or 4 year old daughter running around. So I don't know. He could be my age for all I know. He's
like
just
26 with 1,000 kids.
Yeah, he's just wore out. But and I'll finish up with this. But he bought this storage unit. He had some bad luck. His wife lost his job. All this stuff, and he saw the storage unit that had all these Star Wars toys. He could see them from the front. And he bid $1,700, and everybody there was like, "You're out of your ever-loving mind. You're not going to get that back." So he wins the bid. He then gets a text message from the original owner of the storage unit. He's like, "Hey, I married a very attractive woman who was very ugly on the inside. She took pretty much all my money and then wanted to divorce me for the rest of it. So I stopped paying on this storage unit. There's $500,000 worth of stuff in that thing. Enjoy. I'm glad you got it." He's got Pokemon cards. Yeah, he's got Pokemon cards like Magic the Gathering. He's got baseball cards. He's got the list goes on and on of all this stuff.
I'm guessing he didn't have the money to buy it back.
The guy didn't care. He just didn't want his ex-wife.
$500,000.
He's a millionaire, I guess, and he just didn't want his ex-wife to get a hold of it.
Sounds like he was hiding it from his wife, so he just started stashing his valuables.
I don't know, but this guy has a whole group of friends that buy these storage units. So if I can get in the mix with these guys and be like, "Look, you need something heavy moved, like call me and just pay me in games." Right? Like I'm there in a second. So I'm hoping these guys could be my in to keep this this addiction going. But
Captain Logan in the chat just said Josh is going to be on one of those shows. I was literally just thinking that he's going to be on like Storage Wars or something like that.
Yeah. But he won't be a participating member. He'll be on the guy like, "You guys got any more of them games?"
Yeah.
Yeah, he won't actually be on the show. He'll be the guy in the background of the show, like he just said, lifting all the heavy stuff.
Right.
And they're like, hey, careful with the games. Yeah.
See me running with all the games. I'm out. See you later. So, but anyway, I'm hoping this turns into something beautiful and I can get those collections going a lot get a little quicker than they have been. So I do want to say, hey, everybody in the chat, Captain Logan, Ching Chong 16, Wib. Thanks, guys, for coming and hanging out with us live. We appreciate it. As far as any other pickups, I did pick up the on the Switch. I picked up, what's it called? Gunvolt, Mighty Gunvolt Burst. Is that what it is? Blast? I can't remember the last part of it. Anyway, it's supposed to basically you can play as Beck from Mighty Number 9, and everybody's like, this is the game Mighty Number 9 should have been. It's literally a Mega Man clone. Like, you can only shoot left and right, and it's actually really fun. Music's good, graphics are fun, like they're good. It's good gameplay, and it's the same thing. Like, you find these different bosses, and you got to progress through. And I think you take their powers up, like at somehow or in some way. That's what it looks like. It looks very, very Mega Man-esque. So, I do recommend that for $10. It's not a bad pickup at all. So, hey, did you pick up anything this last week?
Not this last week, but the last game I picked up was ARMS.
Yeah, you loving it?
I like it quite a bit. I was surprised. It really makes me aware that there has not been a proper boxing game in a long time, and now with the feedback on the Joy-Cons are much better than I anticipated. So I'm thinking like a fight night with those where I can actually punch the crap out of something might be very interesting.
So are you doing mainly motion controls or no?
Yes, I am. So I started with the controller, and then I read one of the game designers or something said you're never going to be great at the game if you don't use the motion controls. And so I was like, I'll try it. And it took a while to realize, like, to curve your punch is different than you think. You don't, make a wide punch like you would want to do. You just do a short punch and then curve the controller. And it works pretty dang well.
And see, that's what I was wondering when Josh first told me. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to do mainly controller," and I think you're streaming of the game, Josh. You've only done that with controller, right?
I haven't. I only played the beta with the motion controls, and that was just once.
And see, I was wondering because I thought, like you said, hey, like I thought there was like a lot of like, curving and different styles of punches, and I'm like, well, how does that translate when you're using a controller? It seemed to me like it wasn't really doable. I'm sure maybe there is, but
yeah, you can do it with the controller, but it's pretty easy to curve with the motion controls, and they work pretty well once you get if you play through like the first round of the Grand Prix or whatever they call it, and you play it on easy, you'll have the controls down by the end of it. So
yeah.
It's not bad at all.
Here's my dilemma with that game. I would really like to get it. I don't know why. I feel like I don't want to pay. I feel like to me it's not worth $60, but Nintendo games never go on sale, so I'm gonna end up paying $60 for this game.
Yeah, the replay, it's questionable because there's, with much of these games, there's no story. But if Nintendo would get their online working, like the online lobby system is great. You get into matches pretty quickly. When you're not in a match, you're kind of watching a mock-up of the matches going on before you get thrown into one. So it works. They really need to get the party systems and everything going.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Huh. You mentioned lore. Did you guys hear about the lore for ARMS?
We briefly talked about it last week. I thought
it was like a one-sentence description by the dev, and he's like, one day everyone woke up with spring arms. We'll get to the rest later. I was like, what? That was like officially from a dev. That's the lore of the game.
Well, one of them doesn't even have spring arms. She has like spring ponytails.
Flawed.
So, yeah, there's no real story. They don't talk about the story at all. You play through the game, and there's like a narrator who just talks about everything matter-of-factly. And But it's fun. The gameplay is really good, so it makes you want to play another round. So
can you
I
do
like it.
two-player split screen or co-op, couch co-op?
I believe you can. I haven't done it yet. I think you can supposedly do 4.
You can. I've done it.
Okay.
I'm just wondering because I think maybe the wife might get into that, like especially if we do like the way you're doing it, hey, with the motion control.
Yeah.
That might be the route I have to take.
Then you'd have to get the yellow Joy-Cons, darn.
Obviously. And the AA battery packs.
Right.
Because I'm a firm believer that the reason all these old people were throwing their arms out when they bought the original Wii is because, you go to bowl and you're like, you straight up trying to bowl for real, and that not the Joy-Con at the time, it was just that Wiimote weighed like, half a pound. So, I don't want to throw the arms out,
The arms out, right.
Plus,
right.
I'm sure there's going to be the, like that, what was that called back in the day? It was like yoga, but boxing. It was like, there was like a name for it. It was like, I don't know, box fit or something like that. They'll probably have the 3-pound attachments that attach to the Joy-Con.
Oh.
That way you can, work out for real.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Stop teasing me. The next UFC game's coming to the Switch.
That could be interesting.
It could be. Destin, any major game pickups or anything for you this past week?
No, not on the Nintendo side of things. I'm kind of holding out for, I think Splatoon 2 is the next big drop that I'm waiting for. And then, of course, I've heard from individuals that have played it, if you were not into The Legend of Zelda, then Mario Odyssey is going to be like your reason to buy a Nintendo Switch. So I think, I don't know. I guess depending if that's real or not, that's kind of a glowing review for that. So no,
I need a quick favor from you, Destinot.
Yeah.
Can you sell me on Splatoon 2? I missed the tech demo, and I need a reason to buy it in a month.
Okay, so I played only a couple matches of the demo. Or should I say it's not the tech demo. It's the what did they call it? I don't even remember anymore. It had a special Nintendo name.
Not stress test. It was
because just like the arms was like, what is it? Yeah. What did they call it? They call it something like something fancy. It's fancy. Okay, so yeah. But when I played it, basically I felt like I was playing the original Splatoon. So if you're out there and you're like, what's Splatoon 2 bring to the table? I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit of extras, but the core mechanics from 1 are the same. So if you've never played 1, okay, so my wife loves that game, so instantly I'm like, this is for casuals. But she loves it because she doesn't have to like go for the headshot, she's not a first-person shooter. So she likes it because you don't have to do that. The thing that's really cool about Splatoon is, and it's funny because the devs have always said like, oh, it's not about that. It's not about getting like kills. It's not about, it doesn't have to be about that. They're kind of pulling the typical Nintendo, you can be a kid, you can be an adult. It's not about, trash talking people online and getting headshots. But to be good at the game, you kind of have to take on that first-person shooter style, because the whole point of it is the more ink that's on the ground for your team's color, you win the match. So, in theory, you could be like, oh, you could run right past an enemy player shooting paint on the ground because killing that guy is not gonna win the match for you, kind of. But in actuality, it does, because every time you kill someone, they have to respawn, and every time that they're respawning, they're not putting ink down on the ground. So it's kind of like that extra element of, okay, really you do have to be really good at killing the other teammates, and it's so fast paced. That element of you're running forward, you're kind of throwing ink down. You're almost like Iceman, I guess, like in the comic book world, throwing ice down, kind of going on your own color. And you can only drop down under the ink and become like that squiddling, I think they call it. And then you can go under your color and like zoom around the map. The thing that I think I like about it the most is it's just different. It's not Call of Duty. It's not, I'm drawing a blank, but like I would say more first-person shooters or even third-person shooters are more similar than they are different, in their core mechanics.
No.
I guess I would just say it's fun. I loved jumping into like the first one and just doing kind of like bizarre things in a sense. Like, for example, not even engaging with other players and just like throwing ink down on other parts of the map. If you're like really OCD, this game is for you. Because you're just like, my wife, I'm like, baby, like, just throw the ink down in a general area. Let's just try to get as much down as possible. And she's like filling every nook and cranny with like color. And I'm like, but hey, that's the way she loves to play. It brings out the inner Tourette's in her. So, yeah, it's so different that it's kind of refreshing to play a game it's still a shooter. There's still that competitive nature to it. Like, for example, like I said, you throw ink down on the ground and it's about getting the most percentage of map coverage. At the end of a match, like each person's like little meters like do 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 do, and then all of a sudden like I think there's a cat that's a judge.
Yeah,
and he's got like these little flags, like team flags, and your meter's like it'll get close, and it's like and then it's like one person gets 52%, So and then he throws like the flag up for the winner, and it's like sometimes, and it shows the overhead of the map at the end. And you can see it the whole match, too, so you can kind of look at it and be like, oh, crap, we're screwed. Sometimes it's so close that I don't know if Nintendo does this on purpose, but I'm like, I don't know what the algorithm is to, calculate what the percentages are, but I'm like, that's questionable. So, yeah, I just found it really fun, and it wasn't the traditional... 'cause some people just aren't as good at first-person shooters. Myself, I'm like dwindling in my old age. I'm finding myself less and less good over the years. That's probably not even proper English. Yeah. So this is, you can kind of kick back a little bit more. It's a little bit more stress-free, I guess. I hope they have another demo. Like, I don't know if Nintendo really does that. Like, when it drops, hopefully they have like a little demo or something like that. It's so fun. I just think it's so fun, like I said.
Okay. Yeah, so what are the teams?
It's 4v4. You have different weapon classes. I know they've recently added some, but like in the old game there was like snipers, there's like kind of like what you would call your auto rifle. They have a giant roller. So you're kind of like the guy, like you could just run out and roll paint down on the ground and you can like run behind that guy. The cool mechanic to it is when you die, you can either spawn back at your spawn or you can look on the map and see where your teammates are. And they kind of have like this thing where it kind of like shoots you out of a cannon. And you can like shoot yourself out to where your teammates are. Similar to, I guess, like the Battlefield games, where you can spawn on your squad mates.
Yeah.
Similar feature to that. So it's got some cool mechanics that are thrown in there. It's not just a basic game, where it's just like, oh, you just throw ink down and then you spawn, and so they got some cool little things like that.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna buy it now just because you talked this much about it.
I could keep going. That's the thing. I need to cut myself off because like I didn't even talk about like the supers.
Wait, he's smiling and he's happy about a game.
Yeah, it's surprising. So I'm gonna buy it just because of how much he likes it.
I'm buying a lotto ticket. Are you kidding me? Like, this is the night.
But see, I have to say, like, I wouldn't consider the Nintendo like. If someone were to tell me, like, oh, here's your choice of consoles, you're stuck on an island, pick one. I personally wouldn't go with Nintendo. But there's like certain games that I'm just like Nintendo just has them, and that's why I own a Nintendo system. Splatoon being one of the more recent ones that I would pick. Like Josh knows, like Pokken Tournament. I love that game. I can't wait for that game to come out on the Switch. Everyone's probably laughing at me. I joked around that I'll probably buy that game over Destiny 2 and you guys won't see me for a month. I'm not joking. You guys might not see me online for a month. Well, maybe online playing Pokken Tournament. I don't know. Yeah. No, I really enjoy the game. I know my wife really enjoys the game. So I think that kind of says a lot about someone that likes first-person shooters can play it, and a casual person that, usually only plays Tetris can play it.
Perfect.
I'm going to chime in real quick. And the one thing that I enjoyed about that game was watching my daughter and seeing I felt like she was having the moments I used to have with Nintendo when I was her age, when she played that game. Because, I mean, you're talking about a 9-year-old kid that's got like entertainment overload in our house with Xboxes and Nintendos and everything. But like when she played ARMS and she played Splatoon, she was just a little kid in wonder, and she's 9, so she's not going to have that innocence too much longer, but like just that, I don't know, innocence isn't the right word, but just, that childlike awe where pretty soon it's going to be, she's too cool for that or whatever. Right now, she just I can just see it on her face and I loved it. So that right there is a purchase for me, even just to play with her because she was like so into it. So I do recommend it.
I do want to bring up just real quick. Super Nintendo had mentioned they've got single player. They had it in the first one. I believe it's coming back for the second one. He says the single player in the first game, the final boss in Splatoon 1 is fantastic. Some of the best boss fights in a game in a long time. I agree. They kind of go back to that Nintendo formula of, there's 3 patterns. So you gotta figure all 3 out. Classic Nintendo stuff. The bosses are really cool, and each one's different. They each have their own patterns, so very, very Nintendo-ish.
So moving along, Destin, was there any? I
said, just stuff on the other systems. I picked up. Gotcha. Well, I'd been playing that Wolfenstein: The New Order in preparation of Part 2, which comes out, I believe, this year. And a lot of Overwatch. Cool. That's my multitasking game. I can play that with the sound off while watching Twitch also on the side while running YouTube videos.
Nice. That sounds like a migraine. Cool. Awesome. Well, I want to jump into the news then. We got a handful of things. We're just going to kind of just touch on this stuff briefly just to kind of keep you guys up to date on what's going on. The biggest news is the Super NES Classic, the SNES Classic, SNES Mini, however you want to word it. 20 games plus 1, which is Star Fox 2. It's coming with 2 controllers. It's $80. Now, just real quick, $80. You're looking at about like $4 a piece for the games, give or take, which is about what they go for on all the virtual console stuff. Actually, I want to say they may be closer to like $7.99. So you're actually looking at it like for people that are like wanting the virtual console, this is a better deal. I know you can't take them on the go like you could on the Switch, but you're getting a great library that the internet doesn't love so much. And really? So, there's a few. I mean, it's 10 games less than the NES Classic.
Okay.
And so when I looked at the initial list, now some games are lost to licensing, Star Wars, Turtles, that kind of stuff. But I thought a game that should have definitely been on there was Chrono Trigger, and it was not. Why they don't have all the Donkey Kong countries, I don't know, but it seems like they could have put at least a couple of them.
Aren't those rare? Rare as in the company Rare?
They made them, yes, but the first game is on this is on the system, and Donkey Kong Nintendo owns the rights, so they can reuse those assets.
Chrono Trigger though wasn't that Square?
I believe it was,
So,
but we have Street Fighter, so we have Final Fantasy, so they're still getting some of these things. I just don't know if it's a licensing deal or what. I know that's a lot of what's happening with these systems because people are like, why don't they have them out longer? They get a short window to have the licenses for these games to put out on this console, and then that window is over. Like, there's many lawyers and all kinds of things involved to make these things a reality. And so, you have some people saying, well, that's just another cash grab or whatever. Well, I mean, Nintendo's a business, right? If they need to make money and if they can utilize nostalgia to make money, more power to them. I hope the cords are longer on these controllers because the other ones were literally, I know what happened with the other ones. They had a ton of nunchuck cords left over, and they were like, hey, it's the same plug, let's just put them into an NES controller, and that's the length. I almost guarantee, I didn't like pull it up side by side, but I'm almost positive it's the same length. And so hopefully the cords are longer this time around. But 2 controllers, if you were going to pick up an NES Classic and you found a second controller, it was going to be $70 anyway, so it wasn't this isn't that much more. They're saying there's going to be more in stock than the first run, but it is only going to go until the end of 2017, and then after that, it's done. So far, there's no U.S. pre-orders, nothing in North America. You can get the Super Famicom Classic from across the pond, and a lot of the places, like I know Germany had it today, and it would ship to the U.S., and that has a few different games. It has a Fire Emblem game, as well as I think a different Earthbound game. And so anyway, but the list of games is top notch in my mind. Again, they're games I pretty much already own, sometimes in multiple versions, but it's kind of a cool little piece of Nintendo history, and the kind of thing to throw on a TV in your bedroom or whatever, just to be able to play those games when you want. So I don't know. What do you guys, Destinot, what do you think?
Well,
you heard about this thing. You sent me a GIF of a garbage truck flinging garbage all over the road.
Okay, so I don't even remember where I originally heard it from. I don't know if it was from you or if I just happened to open up the internet and it was right there, and I literally had no reaction to this thing, and I'm just like, maybe because I'm so jaded from the NES Classic, where it's just like, not that the NES Classic, I was like, if I find one, I'll buy it. Never found one. Never bought it. I'm not paying, $10,000 to go buy one off of eBay. So maybe my expectations for this one have been like just insanely reduced. I will say this though, if you are hyped for one, I typed in NES Classic, and what pops up? Very top story. SNES Mini pre-orders. Amazon UK sells out in minutes. Next one down. Nintendo swears the NES Classic won't sell out so quickly. So, quickly, I guess, meaning the last one sold out in 1 minute. So maybe this one sold out in 2 minutes.
Well, what happened is those places closed down their pre-orders to make sure that they weren't overcommitting, and then some of them even opened back up. So there's a shop over on the across the pond called Game. It's like our GameStop, I guess, and they closed pre-orders and then reopened them. Yeah, and I don't know where they're sitting right now. So
my expectation is this is going to be no different than the NES Classic. It's going to sell out immediately. So like I said, if you really want one, keep your eyes open. For me, I do like going back and playing games, whether they are on the actual retro systems or, dare I say, emulated. But this, to me, I see it more of a kind of like a nostalgia thing. I know people complained about the cords being too short, but I almost imagine people buying these and just setting them on their desk, like just to have like a little collectible on their desk, maybe not even using it, or just to have it in the box in their collection. Or like, I think, Josh, you have a case for this thing. I have to ask, how many times have you busted that thing out in the last month to play it?
Oh, hardly at all. But you got to remember, somebody like me, I have almost that entire library of games on my Wii U. So like,
how many times have you busted out your Wii U to play any of those games?
Well, we've been streaming. Wednesdays have been Wednesday, and so I've been playing the original Metroid, and so I do from time to time still play those. But the thing that's fun with the thing that's the best with like the NES Classic or the SNES Classic is really when you have like friends or family come over and you can fire that thing up and just watch people step back in time. And the Super Nintendo, I feel like, even has a much better library for multiplayer games with like Mario Kart and things like that. And even Super Mario World. I mean, to go back and play that game, it still holds up. Like, it's just a great game. And
there are certain games I love. I guess for me, I just don't dip back into those back catalogs as much. So the SNES Classic for me is kind of like a meh. I don't know about what about you, Hate?
Well, I'll start from the beginning. So number one, they dropped it down by 10 games, right? So we're looking for N64 Classic is going to have a library of 10 games.
Yeah.
But 4 controllers, don't you worry.
Okay, 4 controllers, that's good. The SNES controller you're getting is not the original. It doesn't have the controller design slightly modified. The buttons are all convex instead of concave or whatever.
I don't know. I was looking at that. I know on the Famicom they're definitely convex. I couldn't tell from the lighting on the US version though.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be changed in the final. Yeah. But I like the lineup. I think all of those games that they chose were games that we previously chose in the show I was on last, where we picked our Wonder lineup. They obviously missed a few, but they're inevitably going to miss someone's favorite game, so that's fine. I think the biggest thing it's doing, though, this and the Switch, Nintendo's relevant again. And when was the last time in 10 years you hear people actually excitedly talking about the Nintendo? It just hasn't happened.
Especially with the Wii U being kind of a commercial and even fan-proclaimed misstep, People didn't exactly love that system. And it's funny because the Wii U sold a ton, but there's actually a lot of, I guess you could say, like the Nintendo hardcores that also kind of didn't love that system, because it was very heavily, that the motion controls. So some people have been waiting around since the GameCube to get like I guess you'd say like a proper gaming console.
Even the Wii sold really well, but 2 years into the Wii life cycle, people weren't excited about it anymore.
Yeah.
The people who still had the games were looking for Mario Galaxy or Mario Galaxy 2, but the word of mouth, like just talking to coworkers or anyone, people are talking about Nintendo, which is exciting.
Yeah, which is the best kind of marketing you can have. I mean, they're literally selling us to be like they're selling to us to be their commercials at this point, and I love it. I mean, I think it's great because I don't think any other company has that in the gaming industry has that capability. I mean, I do believe there are people that just love Sony and they love that library and everything, but I don't think there's going to be many people from their like mid to late 30s and a little beyond that are going to have that same just nostalgia for a system, because the PlayStation came out so much later.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if they're much older than us, then Atari was probably what they were into. If they're right at our age, right now, which I'm looking at the chat, and Captain Logan says I have a good friend that doesn't have any game consoles, but he picked up the NES Classic for his son, and they play almost every day, and it's the boy's reward for doing good in school. Right? And so, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mentioned on here I played with my son and he's like, how are you alive in Contra? How are you dodging bullets like that, you know? And and it
You said when you're just gives me, son, you won't have to.
right, exactly. So I guess probably the most exciting news about this is that Star Fox 2 is coming out. This is a game that was complete and then was canceled due to the fact that Sony was coming out with so many things that were 3D that looked better than what they could do on the Super Nintendo, that they didn't want to. They wanted to move forward with the 64, and then due to timing issues, they ended up pushing a little bit and pushing it out further, so they could have released it. It was just like a series of unfortunate events for this game. And now, after like 20 years, it's finally coming out. And Jimmy Pike saying Star Fox 2 was responsible for what Star Fox 64 became. And Star Fox 64 is a stellar title. The team that made Star Fox 2 didn't even know it was coming out. They were as surprised as the rest of us and extremely excited that what they worked on is finally going to get to the masses. So,
well, to be fair, they lock them in a basement until they want the next game to come out. So
basically, yeah, basically. So that's exciting. And you know, the other good thing about these little systems is for streaming. When you just want to be able to hook up HDMI right to a capture card and be able to stream, that's 20 games right at your fingertips. 21 games. You know, if you have the NES Classic also, you're looking at over 50 games that you could stream. And if you get into games like Final Fantasy and Earthbound and that kind of stuff, you're talking about hours of gameplay, not you know, like 20 plus hours sometimes. Like you could really get into it. I mean, and RJS, Run Jump Stomp, guys. That's another podcast. They do the Switchcraft, or he does the Switchcraft. Was talking, and he talked about how he loved A Link to the Past and Super Mario World and Super Metroid, but he never beat it. And I'm calling you out right now, RJS. You gotta beat Super Metroid. The best part of that game is the ending. You gotta beat it. So,
you mentioned real quick about how the convenience of just taking the classics. By classics, I mean the SNES and NES. They have an HDMI connector. You can just plug that right into a modern TV and play. And then earlier we talked about the $80 price tag. We get what is it? 20 games?
21.
21 games. Plus you have an HDMI output. To go buy a Super Nintendo today and get a proper converter to get that thing to run the way this thing is going to run games on a modern TV is going to cost you way more than $80 plus all those games.
Yeah, dude, that's actually an excellent point, man. I may even go and put a little post up about that on the Loot Cave about like
there's no way, because first of all, what's a SNES? I'm not in the know as far as what an SNES is going to cost you. $80?
$65 to $85 depending on where you find it and the kind of shape it's in.
Okay, so you got that. Each one of these games, some of these games aren't exactly easy to find.
Earthbound's $200.
Yeah. I don't know where you're going to find Star Fox 2.
You're not.
So, yeah, exactly. You got that right there. And then it starts getting into the nerdy techie side, which an HDMI converter isn't going to just do the trick with these things. To get them running properly, you also need something that's called like a SCART converter, or you got to find, I think that Japan makes a HDMI converter, like analog to HDMI converter, that it's not even sold anymore. It's discontinued. I forget what it's called. I looked it up the other day because I'm like, that'd be cool to have. Yeah, not for $800. It's not cool to have. So that's for a converter. You still need to have things that plug into that thing. And people are like, dude, it's the best thing on the market. Yeah, but it's $800. So $80 is a pretty sweet deal in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, even the other option to be able to hook up to a modern TV without any of that stuff, you can get like a Retron 5, right, that hooks up HDMI. True. That's $150 right there.
Minus
and you can
games.
put the old games in, but it does an emulation thing. It can also mess up your game saves on your original carts if you have them on there. I mean, really, to just be able to sit down and play this on a Saturday morning with a bowl of cereal, like, even if I only did that like once or twice, to me it's still a value. Like, there's still value there just to sit down on the floor, crisscross applesauce like I used to as a kid, and just go to town on some of my favorite games. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. So, hey, you got anything left to say on the SNES Classic?
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons you said, it's a great value. But let's say you wanted to go the emulation route. A lot of the value, I think, is, showing your kids or your family, people who don't play games, like, hey, remember playing this when we were younger. The ease of use in an emulator typically isn't there, and getting it in the living room's a pain. So if you do a Raspberry Pi or something, I mean, that works, but it's not going to be press the power button and you're playing games. So $80, and it's a collector's item, so I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah.
If you disagree with us, hit us up on Twitter at N64Josh or at DestinaTLC.
Don't DM me.
So, and this is an excellent question Super Nintendo brings up, and it's something I wanted to bring up and I forgot, but it says, do you think that we'll see a Game Boy Classic or N64 Classic? Also, the N64 Classic has to come, when we mentioned that earlier on about the N64 having 4 controllers, but yeah, what would you guys think about a Game Boy Classic or a Game Boy Advance? Like, would that be something that you guys would pull the trigger on? It'd be tough for me about the Game Boy because, like, are they going to backlight that thing?
I don't have very large hands, but if they made the Game Boy Classic any smaller, I just don't think I could play it.
Could you imagine if they keep them all proportionate and it's like...
Well, no, I mean...
It's like a fun-sized Snickers. Like,
it'd be like a
good luck with
Tamagotchi.
that.
Well, I was just going to say, you can do a Game Boy Classic, because, I mean, how many people played Snake on their Nokia cell phones? You know,
Right.
Those buttons were minuscule. The D-pad on it would suck, because, that would
Smaller
be
than
rough.
a GameCube controller.
Yeah, a Game Boy Classic, I'm not so sure about, but a Game Boy Advance Classic, I'm thinking you could come out with, even if, either it's, make it the exact same size, or maybe slightly, and by slightly I mean maybe like 5 to 10% smaller than like the clamshell, the SP, and then just make all the games loaded in, because you don't need a cart. I think that would be a good size.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got the backlight and everything.
Mm-hmm. So
they had that one that was like the size of a NES controller.
Yeah,
with the screen in the
It
middle.
was like
What
micro.
Was
the micro?
Yeah.
Something like that might work.
Yeah, something that, dude, that again, that would be, from what I understand, a lot of people, well, first of all, I guess that thing was hard to find. But the review I watched on it, they said, it's kind of small, but it's kind of small for a Game Boy Advanced. But in this scenario, I think it would work perfectly. The screens have also improved, because I guess the screen on that thing wasn't exactly top of the line. But nowadays, they got, cell phone screens that are super high quality. So throw a tiny little, camera in there, or not camera, screen in there. I think that would be perfect.
Yeah, I'd be down. And Super Nintendo had mentioned having Earthbound 3 be on or Mother 3 or whatever be one of those games that comes out on it. So it'd be a cool selling point. But that one's not going to be as much multiplayer though, typically, unless you can link up wirelessly or something with somebody else. So I don't know. I don't know if the value is there for Nintendo to do something like that or not. Real quick, I'm just looking over the Reddit, and I just want to touch on a few headlines. Kirby Blowout Blast is out in North America on July 6th. That's a tweet from Nintendo.
Say that 5 times fast.
Kirby's Blowout Blast, yeah. Anyway, that's July 6th on the eShop, I believe. This is it's looking like it maybe from NeoGAF, yeah. And it just says minor. It says Nintendo files trademark application for Awazon, no Hiho, and I don't know if I said that right.
Sure.
Forgive me if I didn't, or Hi-Ho. It's Virtual Boy Wario Land. So that's kind of interesting. They would file trademarks on that. It's probably Hi-Ho, not Hi-Ho. So, I don't have it. I'm not even going to go into any other details on that. That's just what it says. So, who knows if we're going to get the virtual console is all going to be Virtual Boy games, and the Switch is going to come with a headset that we can. Destin's just shaking his head.
It's just gonna wear out all the red pixels on your screen.
Yeah, pretty much. Minecraft version 1.0.4 is now available to download on the eShop for the Switch. Includes new blocks, animals, and DLC. Other than that pretty much was the main the big news that I can see here. Looking at some of the people naming games they want to see, Freddy's Fright Night, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Turtles in Time, then we got like GameCube Classic and so on and so forth. So, I hope Nintendo keeps going with these consoles. I would love to see an N64 Classic, of course, and just mainly for the ease of use of being able to stream some of those games. But again, licensing, you're probably not going to get GoldenEye. And you're definitely not going to get.
No point.
You're definitely not going to get Perfect Dark. So or Killer Instinct. You're not going to see that on either of those systems either, which would have been great. So
how would they make a Wii U Classic? Would it be 2 parts?
Like a Wii Classic with the nunchucks and the.
It would all just be in the.
Yeah, would it be just in the gamepad, or would they actually have the separate little Wi-Fi module?
I don't think they can classic that yet. I don't know if that was known as a classic.
Yeah, I don't think on any level is that a classic.
Yeah,
maybe it'll be a cult classic in 20 years.
It's Nintendo's Dreamcast, so
they also haven't mentioned anything because obviously there's the NES Classic, the Super Nintendo Classic, but when they got to the 64, we started seeing an entire rainbow of colors. Is each color gonna have its own classic? The clear ones. I think there was a Pikachu version.
That was all weird shaped and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, are they gonna come out with super rare 5 of the gold ones that Toys R Us sold?
Right. Who knows? I would buy up a 64 Classic in a heartbeat. But this is crazy, guys. We've been we sat down and said, okay, we're gonna blaze through this stuff, and we're already at an hour. But I want to get into Metroid. I spent most of my morning listening to Metroid lore and kind of just getting more familiar with the series. The games in the order they come out in the timeline, my head hurts trying to figure all that out.
Worse than Zelda?
No.
Okay.
Because there's fewer games, so that's the only reason. But it's very similar. But we got Metroid Prime 4.
Yes.
That man, I'm curious on where you guys stand. I know we've touched on this just quickly. I really want this game. A lot of people said that Metroid Prime, they were like, "Oh, this is going to be some people were worried that it was going to be the Halo of the GameCube." I don't know why that would worry anybody. That to me would have been an amazing feat. Metroid Prime was still a ton of fun. That just that feeling of isolation you don't get often in games, and Metroid really seems to pull that off well. But I think Nintendo is ready for a franchise that kind of knocks people on their butts and says, "Hey, we can do first-person shooters also." And Samus Aran is an incredible character, right? I mean, she's the fact that I just said she is one of the things that blew so many people away in the 80s that, oh, I just played through this game as a girl and it was awesome. You know, she wasn't a damsel in distress. She's always kind of been a powerful female character, and that's a good thing. I want first person shooter controls. I want this to be Nintendo's Halo. I still want the isolation. I still want that Prime feel, but I want some multiplayer. Some good first-person shooter multiplayer. We're ready, Nintendo. I'm ready. Destinat, by the look on your face.
I'm just thinking how they do that because, I don't know, we're pretty far as first-person shooters go in general. A lot of it's been done before. You know, we've done the squad-based shooters. We've done the like we've talked about. Even Metroid's done it before, like the isolation where you're by yourself. You know, Splinter Cell's done the stealth thing. A lot of mechanics and a lot of storylines have kind of really been covered by first-person shooters, being that it's like the kind of like the game of choice lately. I don't even know what direction they go in. Do they focus on story? Like, you know, like we talked about Samus's story? Do they focus on her? Because it's kind of like, well, geez, that's been done with Tomb Raider, you know? Like, how do you make this stand out other than to be like, hey, this is Metroid? I don't know. Maybe that's why they waited so long to come out with this game. Because they're like, what do we do that hasn't been done before, and how do we keep it Metroid? So I don't know. I have no idea what direction they're gonna go in with this, and I don't know. I see myself being very disappointed easily by this, because if they just come out with it and you're like, oh look, it's Metroid Prime kind of all over again, like reskinned, I would be kind of bummed about that, you know, because I would obviously like to see a progression of some sort, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like everything under the sun has been done before in a first-person shooter, so I don't know where they go.
I think Nintendo's the company that can still bring about that creativity that we want to see, though. I think they still have it up their sleeves. I think Nintendo is a bunch of young developers that are ready to prove themselves, that have the guidance of the older developers to like keep them from going too far off the path, but still allowing them some creative freedom. And but let's talk about multiplayer for just a second. Let's say we got some PvP, right? Well, when you look at a game like Halo, the first one, it's mainly boots on the ground, and there's some vehicles. There's a small array of weapons, and that's pretty much it. You could jump, you could go through some teleporters, right? But look at a game like Overwatch, where you have many different characters that can do many different things. But then you have Metroid, and you have Samus, and you've got, like, I was watching videos from like Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, where like you would basically take the nunchuck and use your grappling beam that you would typically swing with to pull a shield off of somebody, and then be able to shoot them. And so it just gets me thinking, as far as multiplayer goes, like, you know, maybe you're grappling into somebody, pulling them closer for the, you know, the more up close attack, or maybe, you know, you're in a firefight and your health is getting low and you drop down into the ball and you can, you know, hit a shaft that gets you away from the current battle to get your shields back or whatever. Like, there's definitely some things there that they could do to bring about a multiplayer experience that isn't like anything we've seen before. I mean, obviously they could take inspiration for some other games, but I think she has such a large arsenal that it wouldn't be so limited to like just a boots on the ground kind of thing. I think they could get creative with it. And then the other thing is, I wonder if they're going to do kind of a whole play on words with it being Metroid Prime 4, and maybe have like a 4-player co-op. And I know that takes away from that feeling of isolation, But what if it's the kind of thing where the co-op is you all drop into the planet in different places and end up having to try to find each other and then go about fighting a boss or something together, kind of like a raid that you don't start together. And the only reason I say that is because the same team that is creating this game is the same team that created Metroid Prime Federation Force. And that's essentially what that game was. It was a 4-player raid over and over again, progressing through a level and fighting a boss with 4 people. The game is not a bad game. It just got a bad rap for being called Metroid. Like, if it had been called anything else, Space Hunters, whatever, people probably would have enjoyed it, but because of the name, it got shot down so fast. Hey, what do you think, man?
Single player story similar to old Prey. Not necessarily in story, but how it plays.
Running on ceilings and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, why not get some new crazy abilities? And then I want a multiplayer like Quake or Unreal Tournament. We've got a million Call of Duties. Halo's done. Destiny and Halo are similar in play style. So big arena combat style. Just because I think if they can do it right with good controls, and God forbid Nintendo gets online going, they could really corner the market on that type of shooter.
And we mentioned it on here before. The argument is always that, well, Metroid doesn't sell well. That's on Nintendo. Make this a game that everyone's buzzing about because they can't get enough of the multiplayer. I mean, could you imagine like going into a pub or going anywhere, doing a meetup, and it's like everybody pulls out their Switches and you're playing a first person shooter, like sitting with somebody on the bus or on an airplane or whatever. Like, that's not something that we have the ability to do, really. I mean, the PSP and the DS don't really offer that. The Vita or whatever, they don't really offer that like the Switch could. So the potential here is absolutely huge, and I hope I hope they take advantage of it, and I hope they put out something that not only sells well but sells consoles. That we see ourselves in another position where people are trying to get that game so they can get the system so they can get that game as fast as possible. And Nintendo's the company that can do it. And who knows how long this game's been in development for? I'm not quite sure, but if it's been there for a while, they could really have something nice and polished.
Yeah. I think not only can the Vita not do it and the DS, but the PlayStation and the Xbox can't. You're not going into a pub and playing against anyone on a Xbox or a PlayStation either. So if they can prove that they can do first-person shooters well, that brings your Call of Duties, your Battlefields, and maybe at 720p instead of 1080, maybe at 30 frames instead of 60, whatever they have to do. Maybe a few trees less on the Switch version. This game sucks because the Xbox has 37 trees on this level, but Switch only has 15. But that's okay because now you've got it portable. As long as it's solid, I think they have potential. Speaking of that, have you guys heard anything on Payday 2? I'm not extremely excited about the game, but more so what it brings to the system.
I haven't heard any kind of follow-ups with it or anything. But again, that that may end up being the game we have to go to for the first-person shooter. But my fingers are crossed that it's going to be Metroid.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. This just popped in my head while we were talking. Like, I didn't really exactly answer the question, like what I'd like to see. But like, I like the thing that popped in my head, I guess, would be like, I want to see Metroid as what was that? What's the solid Metal Gear Solid 4, where I had like old Snake. I want to see old Metroid where she's like 50
old
years
Samus.
old. Yeah, maybe she's only got one arm, the other one's biotic now, and she's just like just getting beat down on. Like, I don't know, like there's something that goes along with these games. Like usually they have a female protagonist. Maybe I'm just a sadist, but like I love the Tomb Raider games, the newer ones, where it's just like you're this character who, on the surface, you're like, oh, it's a female character. She's weak. She can't do anything. But then she gets the crap beat out of her, literally like the entire game. And it was kind of a prequel to the other Tomb Raiders, because in the older Tomb Raiders, it's like, she was already a badass. She was already, swinging through vines in the jungle. But it's like you got to see what got her to that point. So I'm not saying I want to see a prequel of Samus, but like we kind of see Samus and she's already a badass. So it's like, what happens to a badass when they're 50 years old? I mean, I guess we already know because they have the Untouchable movies, but
I'm gonna tell you now, Nintendo's not gonna age one of their characters.
Yeah, I mean,
never.
These are like, I guess you could say, like hypothetical wish lists, but not just Nintendo, but video games in general. I really like to see when companies take something that, like I said, they could very easily, I think, take Metroid Prime 4 and just make it an updated version of the other Metroids. I know Nintendo doesn't usually do that, because look at Mario Odyssey. That doesn't look like... Yeah, you could say it looks like Galaxy, but obviously there's more to it than that. So I really hope they don't play it safe, because I guess that's my biggest gripe about games in general lately, is that they seem to be playing it safe. It's like they've done the market research. It says that 18 to 35-year-olds love this. Let's give them tons of that. Like,
I think if they were to choose a game to take a risk on, Metroid's the perfect title, because, like Josh said, they don't sell incredibly well.
Yeah. If it's like you're like, oh, this isn't going to sell well anyways, have fun with it. Yeah. Just make it crazy, and then if it's too crazy and the fans are like, this is garbage, be like, oh, well, this is from the alternate timeline, so don't worry about it.
So I'm going to break down the timeline real quick, because that's not what you're saying about her being aged. Mm-hmm. Basically, and I guess I'm going to say spoilers if you're like, I want to go back and play this, I've got a Game Boy, I've got the Wii U, and I can go get on the Virtual Console. So spoilers right now. We're going to talk about all the Metroid games. Not going to go into a lot of detail spoiler stuff. That's not what I'm going to do, but this is kind of a major spoiler, kind of esque. The last Metroid in the as far as the lore goes is Metroid Fusion. And that's because you get attacked by the X parasite, which is why the Metroids were created by the Chozo to begin with. And they have to take Metroid DNA and infuse it into Samus's body, and now her suit is actually part of who she is. And
Samus is a girl? Major spoilers. Come on, man.
Dude.
I hate both of you. So basically, they've kind of, unless they're going to continue with Fusion, every other game it technically takes place before that. And so again, we have no idea, but Metroid Fusion is technically Metroid 4. That's how the game starts. This is Metroid 4. So the year 2075 is when Metroid and Metroid Zero Mission took place. Then next in 2076, you have Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime Hunters. Okay, then 2077, Metroid Prime Echoes. 2078, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. 2079 was the Return of Samus, which is the Game Boy game. So, and let me go back. So the Metroid and Metroid Zero Mission, that Metroid is NES, Metroid Zero Mission is Game Boy Advance, Metroid Prime is GameCube, Metroid Prime Hunters is DS. It's a first-person shooter, really like hand cramps guaranteed. Metroid Prime Echoes was GameCube. That's the sequel. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption was Wii. Then Metroid 2 Return of Samus is Game Boy. Then Super Metroid, the same year in the timeline, is 2079. Metroid Other M 2080, and then Metroid Fusion 2081. So that's, I mean, like I said, it's very like we played Metroid 2, you know, that was the second game we played, but yet it's the like fifth game in the lore. So, and I mean, the story is actually kind of, if you get into it and you want to watch some videos and stuff on YouTube, there's a handful of good ones that kind of break it down. It's kind of fun if you want to just kind of veg out on the story. But um, one of the things I wanted to make sure we brought up is that Super Metroid is one of the best games on the Super Nintendo, and in my mind, is one of the best games that was ever made. Like, it was the first time that I've said this a couple times on the show. It's the first time I felt an emotional experience while playing a video game, um, unlike anything else. For some reason, watching Samus not want to kill this baby Metroid, why that struck me, I don't know. And then seeing what happens at the end of that game with those two characters, it just hit me even when I was real young. So, but what's interesting about this game is it almost didn't happen for numerous reasons. And this is what's interesting about Nintendo. Are you pointing at me?
No.
I think he's giving you the finger.
Oh, this is what's interesting is that this game was basically created in private, like in secret. They had to, like, they were told, no, you're not making it. And then this small group of developers continued making it and then brought the project before, I believe it was, I can't remember his name now. It's something Gunpoi or whatever. I can't remember his first name. It's escaping me right now, but basically the creator of Metroid. And they finally greenlit the thing, you know, and then they were given very small budget and that kind of stuff. It was just, but what's interesting to me is, like, I feel like there's a number of Nintendo games that this happens, and it's like, do they not keep track of their employees, or are these people just working like all of the time, and then they put out these? I mean, honestly, in my mind, Super Metroid is one of the best games, period. Like, period, one of the best games ever made. The sense of exploration, the sense of isolation, the characters, you know, there's just so much to it. The progression, the upgrades, the suit, all of that. And the fact that they had to, like, behind closed doors, make this thing without permission, and then they put out a product like this. It's like, the question I have is, would it have been different if they'd had permission? Would it have been less polished? Because it's like, they need to show something that is phenomenal so they can get it to pass, like, get it to go through, you know? And so I don't know. It's crazy to me that, and I know it's not the only Nintendo game that's had that same situation.
There's been a handful of games that I didn't know the story about this one, where it was like done in secret, and they kind of had to basically probably be like, hey, look, it's already done. You know, like, can you want to greenlight this? You know, like, it just kind of goes to show, this happens not only in the video game industry, but, you know, movies as well. A lot of things aren't exactly, you know, we hear the name Miyamoto all the time, and people are just like, oh, he's the star, he's just a genius, you know. Him and George Lucas should go live in a log cabin together. Well, yeah, like, there's huge teams behind these games or movies, and a lot of times it's like this young talent comes in, you know, and he's like the new excited kid over in the back corner of the meeting room, you know. He's probably just like, oh, what about making this first person, you know? That'd be sweet. And they're probably like, no, Metroid's a side scroller. You don't know what you're talking about, you know, like. And then they come up with these ideas, and someone just decides to take a chance and probably be like, yeah, sure, go ahead and make this, you know. And then yeah, it ends up being a huge hit. And I think in a lot of industries, you know, you get these people that have been in them for a really long time, and it's kind of just like, hey, we listen to this guy because he's been here for 40 years. And it's kind of like, well, that's the problem. This dude's been here for 40 years. Let's get the new hungry guy, you know, that really wants to make something new and exciting. Like, you got to give those people a chance every once in a while. So, yeah, this isn't exactly it's almost like par for the course with Nintendo now. I think in fact Splatoon, I think if I remember correctly, they gave them kind of like I think it was a new team, and they were just kind of like, hey, what do you guys want to do? And they came out with Splatoon, which I love, and I know a lot of people do too.
Gunpei Yokoi was the name I was going for there. I just wanted to get that out because I was just called racist in our chat for not saying their names correctly.
They're people too, Josh.
I wasn't reading it. I was going off memory. Forgive me. So, but yeah, that alone, I kind of want to do a little more research and just find out like more of the games that we probably shouldn't have, but we did because people said, you know what, we have to do this. You know, and it's like, does Nintendo encourage that because they know the kind of quality of games that come out that way? Like, is it almost like did somebody wink at him when they said no? He's like, you know, they're at that meeting and they're like, should we make this? And the guy's shaking yes, but he's like, no. And they're like, what do we do? No, you know, the head nod.
I've heard it both ways. For example, I've heard Miyamoto is an amazing talent and has given us so much as far as games go, but I've also heard he's held back a lot of games because he, over at that company, it's kind of like, what he says goes. So I've also heard kind of the, air quotes, horror stories about what goes on over there. So I think it probably goes both ways.
I'm sure that, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but I'm sure they're working on a other game. They have access to all the textures, and then in their spare time, they're doing a little side project for fun, not thinking it's ever going to get fleshed out. I'm sure when they presented it, they're like, wow, this is a cool game, but they maybe didn't have a story or something to go along with it. And that's where you get the fully polished. Because it seems like that's what happens with a lot of these companies. You've got access to all the equipment to make whatever you want, but you're working on your piece of the project, and on the side you're doing. Isn't that how Cliffy B started Gears of War? Like, I don't think Gears of War was intended to be what it was. He kind of made that on the side for fun. So
interesting. I know the creator of Smash Bros on the Wii U, on his free time or whatever, started messing with NES games and adding elements to them and stuff, and that's how we got the NES Remix, where you have all these little mini games and stuff tied to original NES games. And again, just something that he was, I'm bored, and then turns it into a really fun game. I mean, I spent hours playing that, trying to 3-star all the courses and whatnot. And when you can add mini games to Punch Out and Zelda and the Adventures of Link and all that stuff, good on you. I remember doing golf, and all of a sudden you see just massive rainstorms and wind that were not in the original game, and so it's good stuff. But I definitely want to dig a little deeper and find out how many games were started in secret. And so if anybody's got any good info on that, hit me up, let me know. So we should put a bow on this thing, gents. It's been fun. When we talk about Nintendo, the time goes by so fast. We're almost at an hour and a half, and oh man, one day we'll get it down to an hour, maybe.
Nope.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Destinaut, where can we find you, bud?
People can find me on Twitter at DestinautTLC. Also here on twitch.tv/The Loot Cave. 9 p.m. Pacific time, talking Nintendo, and then earlier than that, 7 p.m. Pacific time, we talk Destiny sprinkled in with some general gaming news.
Cool. Hey, you're not much for social media, but you still got your Switch and whatnot. You want people to play with you or whatever?
Yeah, you can't really find me, but I am on the Discord, the NPC Discord, so if you want to play some maybe Splatoon in the future, or if you want to throw arms with me, you can hit me up there. Cool.
And I will have a link to that. I think it's the lootcave.com/NPC Discord is the is the link if you want to join that Discord and hang out with us there. We talk Nintendo, and if people are looking for amiibo. Oh, I did get all the Zelda amiibo. I didn't even mention that. I was fortunate enough to pre-order the 2 and got in on the Amazon order. They shipped it to me in an envelope, and it was kind of a little bit bent, but nothing creased, so I wasn't too upset.
Hold on, can we pause? Why are there no ARMS amiibo? Like, why not?
Maybe one day. Maybe that'll be a DLC.
I mean, they would make cool amiibo with the flexy arms. Like, come on, Nintendo.
Well, they said all the DLC will be free, but they can't. Amiibo won't be free. So
it's inside the amiibo. The DLC is free. You got to pay for the amiibo though.
Yeah. It'll be new characters too. They won't even be the old ones. They'll be new characters. You want a new character in ARMS? Buy the amiibo.
By Gen 1 Mario. Fireball Mario.
So, guys, you can find me on Twitter at N64Josh. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/N64Josh. And guys, I had my chat help me write my resume last night because I'm going to apply at IGN for the Nintendo editor position. Who knows what will happen, but I figure it can't hurt to try. In the 3 hours it took to rewrite my resume, because I opened up a Google Docs and just let my chat have at it, I don't think everybody that has talked to me since or during the thing said they had never laughed so hard during a stream. I had never laughed so hard during a stream. I was crying. I know Jimmy Pike said he was crying. Henny messaged me today and was like, I can't, that was insanity, because they were typing jokes. Destinot got in there and it was out of control. Alka-Seltzer-Tini was there. I felt like she was trying to corral everybody, and everybody has funny animal names when you get on the Google Doc, like Anonymous Beaver and Anonymous Fox. And I don't know. We were rolling. She's saying best stream ever. It was hilarious. So, that may continue. We may continue stuff like that. I don't know. We'll have to, not on my resume, but maybe something else. 'Cause we had a good time there. Maybe be onto something. So that's twitch.tv/N64Josh. I'm doing Wednesday is the NES day, where I'm streaming an NES game. It's a little bit later at night, typically, like 8 o'clock. Mondays are Mario Mondays, so we're doing some kind of Mario game then, and then just whatever else I feel like playing throughout the week. But trying to stream as often as I can and keep the balance of family and everything else. So come hang out if you want. It's a good time. It's a good time. Grab some games with me if I'm playing Mario Kart or something like that. I gladly play with whoever joins the stream. So if you have a second, you can leave us a review on iTunes. I really appreciate that. It just helps us get kind of move up the ranks and everything, and helps get more eyes on this show, more eyes and ears. So we really appreciate it. If you're loving this, feel free to share it with some friends, family, whatever. If you think they'd be into it, we'd really appreciate it. So, and guys, you can also follow me on Instagram and stuff like that, Facebook. And I post a lot of Nintendo pictures on my Instagram. So, and that's just I believe it's just N64Josh. So, Hate, thanks for hanging out, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Brian, thank you.
Yep.
Guys in the chat, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And we'll next week's gonna be a little different because we got the 4th of July. So I may just record something. I'm gonna be in Florida for Destiny Con or Guardian Con, but I may just record something a little shorter and put it out for the show, so we won't have a week off, but it'll just be something a little more low key. So that's it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Later.